Hello learners, welcome to yet another session on integrated marketing communications. And today we'll be talking about making an integrated marketing communications plan. In this session, we will be covering the following topics. 1. How to make an IMC plan. 2. The SOSTAC formula. 3. The 3 M's of marketing plan. And the 4th is 5 steps of creating an IMC plan. So let us look at how we make an integrated marketing communications plan. Ideally, there is no fixed approach for a marketing and communications plan, but there are also always some essential elements. Because marketing and marketing communications is largely about striking a balance between what an organization thinks and feels and how the audiences interpret the messages. So there is no fixed way, there is no fixed formula how particular communications will become a hit with the audiences. But there are some essential elements which must be followed in order to make your IMC plan a success. And one widely used approach is SOSTAC. Now, SOSTAC for short stands for Situation, Objectives, Strategy, Tactics, Action, and Control. Now, let us look into the details of what this SOSTAC plan actually means. When we say situation, which is S, we try to answer the question, where are we now? It is always required to have a proper assessment of what your immediate situation is, what your immediate environment is, where are you placed in that environment, so that when you focus all your energies and you synergize everything in order to create a kind of formula which will help you meet your objectives, it will be better successful. It is to, like say for example, if you're going to talk to people about polio campaigns or polio drops, there can be a certain level of awareness, knowledge and education about polio which will already be existing in your target audience. So if you're wasting your energy trying to tell them everything from the scratch, from zero, it will not help. So hence it is very important to first figure out where we are now. And like I've always told in my previous sessions, one of the best ways of knowing where we stand is the SWOT analysis. An analysis which talks about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats for any company, any brand in a competitive marketplace. It also helps you to know the need and pace of performance. If we understand where we are placed, where our brand is placed, or how strong our competition is, we know the kind of objectives we should formulate for ourselves and what should be our pace of performance in order to one up the competition. So this is the situation. Now let us look at O, which stands for objectives. When we say objectives, it answers the question, where are we headed? Where are we going? So far you got to know what your situation is, where you're standing. And now you need to decide where you're going to head. Long-term and short-term goals and objectives exist in every plan of action. So whenever we're talking of an integrated marketing communications plan, we need to understand that there is some long-term goal that one may need to achieve. Say for example, image management. One wants the customers and the audiences to view the brand or the company as a more socially responsible company. Now this kind of a change will not come overnight. It will take a lot of effort, concretized effort on the part of the company and on the part of the employees and the entire team which is planning the integrated marketing communications to come together in consonance and then figure out how do we achieve this goal. So this can be a long-term goal. As compared to this, when we talk of short-term goals, those are the goals that you look at achieving immediately. Say for example, you are organizing an event. In that event, you're expecting a certain number of footfalls because those footfalls will ensure that people will be at least aware of the brand because they're coming to your event, so they will be aware of your brand. So this can be a short-term goal. Also, the objectives, it is very important that they be measured properly. The measurability of objectives is important because that is how we will be able to determine whether your integrated marketing communication plan has yielded concrete results or has it been left midway. So ideally, the objectives can be long-term as well as short-term, but what is important in both kind of objectives is that they should be able to be measured. So measurability is an important component when we set the objectives. Say for example, other examples of building objectives could be building sales volume, increase in share price, increasing awareness, and positioning the product. So all of these are various objectives. It depends on what is long-term and what is short-term. Accordingly, you span it as far as time and resources are concerned, because then you're able to understand that if there is a certain long-term plan that you're planning to achieve, it obviously takes greater efforts and resources. So it will be spread over, say for example, 6 months or over a period of 1 year. As compared to this, any short-term plan will take lesser amount of resources and lesser time. So accordingly, we place the objectives. Now we've just seen the environment, which was S, the situation. We've looked at objectives. Now we look at strategy. We have devised our goals. We have devised the objectives that we're planning to meet, long-term and short-term. Now what should be the strategy with which we will be able to achieve these objectives? So it answers the question, how do we get there? Keeping the objectives in mind, keeping the marketing mix and communication mix in mind, we decide upon the entire integrated marketing communication plan. So that is where the strategy gets devised. Also, while we are considering the communication mix and the marketing mix, we will also look at the budget that is provided to us for a certain activity or for the entire IMC activities, as well as the time constraints that are there. So when I say marketing mix and when I say communication mix, these are two different yet overlapping terms. When we say marketing mix, we're trying to look at all those tools of marketing which we make use of in order to achieve our objectives. And when we talk of communication, communication can be of various kinds. So all the marketing mix makes use of communication and a mix of communication which is customized according to the needs of the audience and according to the needs of the brand and according to the objectives that we've set for the brand to achieve, that we will push forth our integrated marketing communications plan. Now let us look at tactics. You have devised a strategy, means you have ideally entered a situation where you know what is it that you're going to do first and why is it better than doing it next, and what is it that you're going to do next. So by which strategy are you going to achieve your short-term goals, and by means of achieving your short-term goals, how does your long-term goal gets achieved. While looking at it, we also need to look at the tactics that we adopt for the IMC plan. Now, what is that tactics? Tactics is not something which is very separate from strategy. Basically, tactics answers the question, what is the detail of the strategy? Strategy is the way you have decided to achieve your result. And now once you've decided how do you get there, you also have to answer the question, what is the details? What are the problems that we're going to meet in the way to success? So it talks about the details of marketing communication mix. So far, while we were devising the strategy, by looking at the objectives, we were looking at what kind of communication mix can be there and what kind of marketing mix can be there, and then also looking at the budget and time. Now we are looking at the entire marketing communication mix that we have chosen as a part of our strategy. So it includes the decision on tools of communication and how much to be spent on a certain activity. So say for example, you decided that a certain brand X is a very new brand in the market and you need to create some awareness about it. So you organized an event, after which you decided to look at the footfalls and you decided to correspond with the people through direct mailers. Now you have to decide how much money can you afford to spend on this entire activity. So this is what we call tactics. While you're looking at the details of the marketing communications mix, you are deciding what kind of tools of communication you're going to use, which medium will be better to be used. If you think you're able to reach your audiences on a larger level through event organizations, then probably the mainstream media can be kept at bay. Or probably you can make use of the social media while you're targeting your integrated marketing communication mix. So this is what we call tactics. How to handle the strategy and how to work with the marketing communication mix that you have devised for yourself as a part of the strategy. Now look at A, which stands for action. What steps are required to put each tool in action? Now, when we say putting each tool in action, we're basically talking about a plan of action. Actual plan of action is required so that all the activities fall in line as per plan. So what are the steps that you're going to take in order to ensure that your plan of action is met and it is as per and all the activities are taking place as planned before? It includes some background work as well. It includes, say for example, like we were just talking about organizing an event. You have to study how were the prior events taken by the audiences. How was the footfall? How was the feedback? And whether enough number of people became aware of what you were trying to make them aware. And it also includes some internal activities for creating the tools to deliver the strategy. Internal activities, there are usually in any brand, in any company, there are various teams who are working together. So there has to be a cohesion of these teams so that the internal activities are monitored well and they are shaped up well in order to create the tools to deliver the strategy. So this is the actual plan of action, how we are going about the entire plan. This is called action. And once action is taken, it is of no use if it goes beyond control or if it cannot be controlled at all. Hence, the next important factor is control. See, are we getting there or not? Are we really getting there? We're spending so many resources in terms of time and money and human beings, the manpower. So are we really getting there? There are certain checks in the marketing communications activity, which is a very detailed, elaborate plan about how you're going to meet the objectives that you've set for yourself. The measurability of results is very important because time and again at every step multifariously when you're measuring the results, you're also understanding if there is any scope for mid-term corrections, mid-term interventions, some kind of amendments to be made, whether the plan, the way it was perceived by brand managers is going wrong, or do we immediately need to take some action regarding some steps that have gone wrong and have not been yielding results and might result into something which will not be a very positive communication from the brand's end to its customers. So all these things are a part of control. The IMC team who has worked on different aspects, say for example, formulating the customization of media, what kind of media formula are you going to use, what kind of marketing activities are you going to do, what sort of communication would you want your audiences to be confronted with, all those answers are put in place by different teams that are working on the IMC plan. So these are also the people who are viewing it while it is being implemented, and while it is being implemented, it will be evident for everybody to see whether there is any scope for mid-term corrections or not. So control helps in knowing whether the targets are being met, number one, and whether the outcome can be maximized. So while we are looking at whether the short-term goals are being met or not, we can also see whether we can, maximize the output. Maybe we are putting in more resources than needed, or maybe we can harbor greater results, harbor greater feedback or greater responses from the public. So what should we do in order to maximize the output is also a part of control. So this was the SOSTAC formula of IMC planning. Now let us also look at the 3 M's of marketing plan, and these 3 M's have to be paid attention to, have to be kept in mind while you are creating an integrated marketing communications plan. Now what are these 3 M's? One M stands for men and women, the human resources. The second M stands for money, and the third M stands for minutes, which means time. Now let us look at these. When I say M as in men and women, it is the human resource which is involved in the plan. One has to be very particular and very specific about the capacity of the human resources of the teams that you've taken, about the capability of these people, the human resources, and the expertise that they hold. Any integrated marketing communications plan can fall flat without experts in the group. So the expertise is really important when we talk about the team. Also the capacity, what is the capacity of people, what are they trained to do, how much can they achieve in a given point of time, and what is the kind of resource allotment that they're looking at. And also capability is important, how capable a person is in taking decisions when it comes to last minute decisions, or if it comes to some kind of crisis or an unprecedented situation where you have to take a call on your own without waiting much for the higher ups. So expertise comes in very handy when we talk about such kind of IMC plannings. The second, of course, is money, because budget estimates and cash availability is important, because that is the crux of how we carry out the marketing communication activities. So the budgetary estimates are important. And the third, of course, is minutes, which is the timelines which are set to accomplish the whole task and small chunks. So the time schedules ensure timely completion of these tasks. When you have already said that organizing an event, collecting feedback, and coming up with a report is going to ideally take, say, 2 weeks' time. So what are the various other activities that you have planned ahead of that? And by the end of, say, for example, 6 months, how do you think you're going to achieve the objective, the long-term objective that you've set for yourself? So the timelines are going to help you accomplish in totality the entire task, as well as the breakups of the project, the small chunks of the project. So time schedules come very handy. These are the 3 M's of any marketing plan which must be borne in mind while you're planning an IMC campaign. Now let us look at the 5 steps for creating an IMC plan. Now I first talked of the SOSTAC formula, that was one way of looking at it, and I will reiterate that there are no fixed formulas. If you have a good understanding of your brand and of your customer, you can come up with your own formula. But just to give you some perspective, I thought that I would discuss 2 kinds of plans here. One was the SOSTAC, the other is the 5 steps for creating an IMC plan, which includes these points. 1, it's to set a common objective and strategy across teams. Why? Because there are various kinds of teams. There can be a back-end team, there can be a technology team, there can be an HR team, there can be a field work team. Various types of groups of people who are working on various parts of the same project. So one has to set common objectives and strategy across teams and see to it that you meet these personnel time and again to understand what their needs are, to clarify if there are doubts of any kind, and to see to it that everyone is propelled towards the same objective in the same collective fashion as was designed earlier. Now, for this, there are a few key questions that one needs to answer, like, what are your strategic goals? When I say strategic goals, what do you think can be the goals of any company, any organization? They could be the rise in sales, they could be the rise in marketing activities and the visibility of your marketing activities, and there could be other general business objectives. Could be business volume as well as sales as well as revenue, various other aspects. So you set up some strategic goals as to what is it that you're looking to increase, decrease, make visible, whatever. The second key question is the target. What is the market share that your brand captures? What is the brand awareness amongst the targeted audiences? Say, for example, if it is a cosmetic product, what is the kind of awareness that people have about it, people who use it? So, and then of course you also look at generating leads. Why? Because those leads will get you better business volume. So the second important question to be answered is, what are your targets? The third part, of course, I have stressed enough of this, is the timing. what is the kind of time you have at hand in order to carry out your integrated marketing communications activities, your marketing activities, and how do you plan to take a feedback and calculate, measure the results of those. And of course, the fourth part is the budget, the kind of money you have, because that will decide what kind of, how grand a plan can you make, because everything is ultimately depending on the resources that you have. Now let us look at identifying a clear audience insight. These are one of the 5 steps that we will be talking about in this integrated marketing communications planning. When we talk about identifying the audience insight, there are 4 major areas that you need to look into. First is the business area. When I say business, what is the bigger picture strategy? Where do you think can you place yourself? Say for example, if you are an e-commerce company, where do you see yourself? Are you a startup? Are you well established in the market? Are you well established but a new player? You know, so those are the questions that need to be answered. What is the culture? It is very important to understand the significance of the cultural norms and the culture of the place where you operate. Say for example, in a country like India, which has so many festivals on and off, you cannot disregard of religion in a country like India. As compared to this, in the West, probably religion is something which is class apart, kept only for Sunday mornings, and the rest of the time is business time. What is the culture is important. The third aspect is brand perception. What do people think of you? Some cosmetic brand, is it thought of as something which is cheap, which is just like, you know, not something very classy? Or is it something which is more of a luxury product? Is it something which is specially placed for the middle segment of the audience, I mean the middle class? Is it something which is looked upon as something which has high usability? So if it is being used by a person, it would only be dissatisfaction towards the product which will lead this person to not be brand loyal and to move on to some other brand. So what is the perception about your brand in general amongst the target audience is important to gauge. Then of course, credibility. What is the kind of credibility you enjoy? Say for example, if you're a health product, do you think you enjoy enough credibility in the market and amongst the audience so that people trust you, people believe you? They think that if you're taking some sort of a health drink, your bones will become strong. Do they believe that? Is there some market credibility of your product? Has it shown results? That is one of the business areas, business concerns. The other area other than the business is the market. Is the market mature or emerging? When I say a mature market, it means companies of this kind and such kind of a business environment has been prevalent for quite some time now. So that is what you call a mature market. And an emerging market could be a market like India, where you have an opportunity for everybody, whether it is growing or shrinking. So e-commerce or entrepreneurship is something, startups are something which are more of growing kind of markets. Is it slow and risk averse, or is it fast paced and hyped up? Share market is something which you would see is quite fast paced. When the economy is doing well, the shares would rise and fall steeply, and a lot of movement will happen in the share market. So that is what I call a fast paced or a hyped up market. As compared to this, a slow and risk averse market could be of the times when there was no e-commerce, of the times when technology was not a part of marketing, etc. So that was a slow and risk averse market. Also, amongst economies, amongst countries that are less developed, the fourth world countries, so to say, the economies are largely slow paced and they are risk averse. Another way of looking at the market is, what is the strength of the competition? You are a brand X which produces, say for example, washing machines. Who are the other players in the market? How long have they been existing here? If they've been existing here for long, that means they also enjoy a certain kind of credibility, which probably is their strength and could be your weakness. So what is the strength of your competition? And then what is the role of analysts and influencers? We cannot negate the role of influencers and analysts in a market where everything is so perception driven. So we need to know and understand how the analysts and influencers are playing a part in the market. Then let us look at the product. This is the third aspect. When I say product, what is it that you're out to sell? What are the strongest features, the unique selling proposition of your market? What are the benefits that are being delivered to the person? Say for example, if it is a water filter, does it ensure that it will be a pure, healthy drinking water that will be provided to the customer? What are the benefits that you're delivering? Then you look at the product perception. How is the product perceived? It could be something which is a local product, but at the same time very cost effective, and at the same time much needed in the household, say for example. So the product perception could be different for different products. You need to understand how your product is being perceived in the market. Is it easy to know what it does? Is, like say for example, when I talk of a pill, because I have a headache, I pop in a pill and I know that within half an hour my headache will be gone. So is it easy to know that this pill will take away my headache? Is it easy to know that the shares of a certain company that you're purchasing are actually going to rise in times to come, or is it going to fall flat? So is it easy to know what your product is doing for the people? Also, are there comparable solutions in the market? Say for example, there is a brand which produces CC cream, which helps you take away all the spots that are visible on your skin, on your face. What are the other comparable companies, other comparable products that are there in the market? Can they beat your product? You need to have an understanding and a thorough understanding of the product and the competition products that are available in the market. Now let us look at the more significant part, the audience. When I say audience, we need to answer the following questions. One, what do they believe now? Do they think your brand is as great as it was once upon a time? What do you want them to believe? What is the kind of perceptual change, the reality, the perceptual reality that you're trying to change for your audiences? Then why should they care or act? There are so many times that people are told that you should prevent pollution, you should not do any activity which leads to greater pollution. So why should they care and act? Do they have an answer as to why they should prevent pollution? Why don't they care and act? They all understand, we all have a sound understanding of why and how pollution has affected the environment. But a number of times we don't act. Why? What is stopping them from purchasing your product? Is it because the quality is not that great? Is it because it is highly priced? Is it because the utility component is missing? Is it because it has no uniqueness? It does not set itself apart from the other products? What is the reason why people are not purchasing your product? So all those answers come to you when you know the audience perspective well. So these are the first 4 areas that you need to determine. After this comes the next step, which is the big idea. When I say the big idea, it is the experience idea. It marks the transition from strategy to execution. So how are we going out in the market is something which will be decided by the big idea. It provides a clear, impactful and differentiated concept. It provides a greater opportunity to pierce through noise, and it helps you capture the audience attention. Then let us look at the efficient channel planning. Outlining how different media channels will be used to meet business and marketing objectives based on the budget and audience insight is what we call channel planning. So one has to outline the roles of channels. When I say channels, I mean all media. Is it advertising that we are going to put to use, or is it events, or is it public relations? Is it image building and corporate communications? What is it that we're going to use and why? And then we get into details of how and where these channels will be used at what points of time. The best practices in the field should be followed, which come of course from your own brand, because you have been in the field for some time. So you have had your own experiences based on which you build your best practices. And the next and more important is studying the customer data. When I say studying the customer data, it is about understanding how customers relate to your business. We were just talking about it 5 minutes back. How do you identify the key communication and content needs? Do you maintain contact with different types of customers? Different type of customers could mean, say for example, men and women both. So you have a skin cream which is for men as well as for women. Or is it for different segments of the audiences? So for the SEC A class people, or for people who are, say, more influential in general, as compared to that for the middle class, as compared to that for the lower class? Do you have smaller packages which are costing less so that others can also use it? So are you addressing different segments of the audiences? And are you also addressing different life stages of customers? So there can be a fully automatic washing machine which may be needed by a working woman because she has less time, and also by an elderly who cannot, do so much all on one's own. So on different life stages, how are you looking at the customer data? And of course, the last but not the least, concerted efforts by all teams. I have explained what different types of teams work together when we talk about building a plan for integrated marketing communications. There should be a clear alignment of all the teams involved in the process. So that is it about planning an IMC campaign. Think holistic, think IMC, till we meet again 5 minutes down the line. Thank you.